This is the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 2, and verse 11. And it reads, "Lest Satan should get advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash. I want to give double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching us the truth 100% securely. And I'd like to give a salutation to the Akim and Aqua who are listening and studying to show thyself approved. All right, so this is just another quick lesson. I was in the middle of watching this podcast called The Average Man Unplugged. All right, this is fair use. I'm not using this content for monetary gain. This is for edification purposes only. Okay, and in this clip, which I'm gonna get ready to play, you seen, he basically, this guy was pretty much covering the protests that's been going on around America, aka Babylon the Great. Okay, and as it says in the prophecies, there shall be upwards of the people. Matter of fact, let's get this real quick before let's get another quick precept, because I just thought about this. Come back to this Ecclesiastica Sirach. You get to 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter again. I just read this in a couple of lessons before. All right, so it's 2nd Ezra 9:1. And he said, "He answered me, then said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the sign past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made." And it said, "Therefore, when you shall be seen earthquakes and upwards of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before these, even from the beginning." Okay, so that's what you're gonna see in this clip is gonna be an example of another example of a prophecy being fulfilled that is written in the scriptures of Yahweh Yahweh Shai. Okay, the words of Yahweh Yahweh Shai will not go out void, as it says in Isaiah the 8th chapter. Okay, so let's go back and look at this clip. All right, because you're gonna have people, and there's all kinds of people that pretty much shows their hand, and they show you what kind of person they are. All right, so without further ado, let's play this clip.
Have these pallets here. It's unreal. When I was out in Los Angeles protesting the ICE deportations for the past few days, besides the fact that I got paid $150 to do so per day, I kept seeing signs everywhere that this was being funded by somebody much higher than the person that I had met. For instance, they would give us certain streets or certain targets to go to, and on those streets, there would be pallets of things that could cause destruction to the community. I am not joking. For instance, you turn a corner, boom, there's a pallet of bricks. Oh, that's convenient. Let's destroy the community. And y'all know me, I'm a good guy, but I truly do not care that much about the ICE deportations. I just wanted that $150 a day. But I got to thinking, man, whoever is funding this must really hate this country. So as time goes on while we're protesting and things evolve, they evolve in a more violent nature. For instance, instead of there being a pallet of bricks on the target neighborhood or target street that we are protesting on, it'll be a pallet of flammable objects. So it was at that moment when I saw that pallet of Molotov cocktails sitting on the ground, I thought, man, should I really be doing this? Like, this is bad news. This is going to get way worse. Now, I'm not from Los Angeles or live in Los Angeles, so I don't really care about destroying that community, but I'm American after all. Like, this is not good. Moral to the story is there are certain people in our government that wants us to go burn the local police station down, but in actuality, the corruption is at a much higher level.
Okay, so what this person is saying here is what a lot of people have been thinking as we've seen all of these riots and quote-unquote protests kind of like spring up out of nowhere. These things are definitely very well organized and very well funded. You've seen these videos coming from LA, but now they're starting to spread all across the country. This person is telling you that he was paid $150 to go to those protests. And what he also said was that he would be given a specific location to go to. And when he gets to that specific location, surprise, surprise, here are pallets of bricks. Here are Molotov cocktails. Here are all of these things that are just right there for people to participate in the destruction of these communities. Now, if you want to talk about George Soros, if you want to talk about the left-wing activist billionaires that are funding all of this stuff, let's talk about it. It is very unlikely to me that all of these uprisings and all of these protests that you're seeing in LA, you're starting to see them in different cities. I'm in DC right now. There'll probably be some stuff this weekend. It is very suspicious to me that these are all coming out of nowhere. And also, these things do not just spring up off of nothing, right? They are very well organized. They are very well funded by people who seek to cause destruction in this country and who seek to get, normal American citizens, they want to incentivize them for participating in these things. They want to pay them. They want to incentivize people that want to do nothing but cause destruction in this country. So the next time you see a video from one of these protests, the next time you see a video from one of these riots, think about what I just showed you and think about how many people out there are actually being funded and paid to do these things and also being incentivized to cause even more violence in the streets of this country.
You don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
Right.
I do, but...
So, and there you have it right there. And so that's the, as you saw in the opening clip. All right, there's a whole lot to unpack, right? Which is pretty much the prophecies of Yahweh Shah, what he said these things are going to happen. All right, and there are several scriptures that you saw that's in real time, that's actually living, and that's why we say the words of Yahweh Shah is living. Like, his words will not come back void. And you're seeing the scripture written out in, it's right before your eyes, man. Like, you can't deny this. So one thing that I thought about, was Matthew, the 7th chapter, when Yahweh Shai, this is red letter, and really we can start at the 15th verse, right? And it says, and at the subtitle, it says the tree and its fruit, okay? So he comparing people, individuals, companies, companies, groups of people, et cetera, and he compared it to a fruit and a tree, okay? And that's basically what this parable of Yahweh Shai, who in the world ignorant called Jesus Christ, that's what he was describing, okay? But in the sense of this, the context of this scripture, he was basically describing, he was going in on the false prophets. But you can very well use this same scripture and apply it to what you just saw in the opening clip, all right? So it's Matthew chapter 7 and verse 15, it says, beware of false prophets will come to you in sheep clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves, okay? And so again, you can apply that to the false prophets. You can apply that to people in your circle. All of those, right? And it says, it says, ye shall know them by their fruits. Okay? Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistle? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruit ye shall know them. Okay? And it gets straight to the point in the NLT, Matthew 7 and 20. In the NLT it says, yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, so you can identify people by their action. Okay? And this is a perfect example of what you saw in the opening clip. Now the guy who was basically explaining how he was paid, $150, a day or whatever, however long the protest lasted, he was paid to go out there and perform the wicked act of the protest, okay, which just shows you what type of individual that person is. All right, let's just call a spade a spade. That individual is a person that loves money more than anything else. And you know what the scripture says about, the love of money, what till we go get that? And then you think about the individual, not only he's accepting the money to do all of this heinous act for who, and it's none other than Esau, even the so-called white man. This is why you can't trust these devils, okay? They the ones who creating the chaos. And matter of fact, this will pretty much be the title of this lesson, all right? The title of the lesson be Ordo E Chao, okay? Which is basically, we gotta, basically the earth is giving it to the hands of the wicked, so they don't want to create the chaos, all right? And then they want to establish the order, okay? These are the people we be talking about when we go out on the highways and hedges and we be exposing them, all right? And this very clip actually exposes who the wicked is. Like to bear with me for a minute. Salaka. Alright, so yeah, so this very clip actually exposes who the wicked is. Alright, and there's no point intended. Matter of fact, let's get this real quick. Jeremiah chapter 49. All right, so these are the people that do the business of Satan, man. All right, Jeremiah 49 and 10, and there's none other than Esau, Edom, okay? Exactly who they is, and pretty much the so-called white man, as the scripture says. You know, that's who they are, the wicked, okay? The ones who control all the policy, the ones who control all the banking system. These are the people that be funding these protesters. All right, and then they basically manipulate everyday working class people to do their bidding. All right, bear with me for a minute. Hold on, give me 1 second. Got quite a bit work cut out for me today, but this is the book of Jeremiah. What we do, we actually read this scripture yesterday, Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 10. You know, we read this scripture in the highways and hedges. All right, because he said, "But I have made Esau bare." Right, and you go to that word "bare," and it says of a person, body part not clothed or covered. But in the spiritual sense, it's talking about Esau, Edom, his whole infrastructure is being made clear. Everybody on the whole internet see all of the wickedness that he have done throughout, not just here in America, throughout the whole world. All right, that's why he said, "I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places." And hold on. And it said, "I have uncovered his secret place, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not." Okay, and it's talking about the upper echelon. Okay, and then it said his seed is spoiled, which meaning that, you know, a perfect example would be Joe Biden and his son. He's a spoiled individual. You know, basically he's got everything that he desires. He can pretty much have all the riches that he have, but he take that money and he snort it up his nose. Okay, that's basically an example of these very wicked people, seed being spoiled. Okay, and then you got tons of other examples. All right, Donald Trump, who pretty much a trust fund baby. He's a spoiled individual. Okay, so that's, you know, there's ton of different examples that we can use to, you know, prove this scripture to be accurate. All right, so you got that, right? And then you have what we just get ready to go into, is that old Jake. Okay, so who was actually funding that Jake, you know, to go out and protest? And that just tells you, just like we read in Matthew the 7th chapter and the 20th verse, you know, just how you can tell a tree by its fruit, so you can tell people by his action. By his action and everything he explained, he exposed himself. He told on himself, and he told you what type of individual he was. Okay, he's a person that loved money more than anything. So that's a evil and wicked individual, even though he proclaimed himself to be a good guy, right? You know, anybody can be a good guy. Anybody say they're a good guy, but their action says otherwise, right? And so that's why this is the book of 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 10, and it says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, with while some coveted after they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." Okay? They pierced themselves through with many sorrows, meaning that everything that he's done is going to come back around on him, but he participated, because we already know Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, those who run policies and all of that, they are the wicked. All right? We prophesy that, we're going to stand on that. Okay? But you got individuals that help this guy spread out his wickedness. Okay? And that's the individual. And think about how many other people that's willing to do the same thing that Jake did. All right? And that's, and that's just a quick lesson. I wasn't gonna make this lesson too long. All right? But yeah, that's an example. What you just saw was an example of Ordo E Chao. Okay? And so I'm gonna go ahead and end it off with the book of Sirach. And this is why we tell you when we do these lessons, these video epistles, to never trust our enemy. In a lot of our lessons we would tell you that. Never trust our enemy. Okay? So this is Ecclesiastes, aka Sirach. The 12th chapter, and we're going to start at the 10th verse, okay? Because it said, "Never trust thy enemy, but like as iron rusted." All right? Never trust thy enemy, no matter what they say, what they bring up, okay? No matter whatever situation they try to tell you, never trust them, okay? You got the politicians, they didn't show themselves, they showed their hand on time and time again, okay? Giving you more reasons why you should never trust him. And it says, "For like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness." And you got a couple of precepts to get around that, but we'll keep reading on. In verse 11, it said, "Though he humble himself." Okay, that's how they humbling themselves. When they want something out of you, they sweet talk you, according to Psalm 55 and 21. All right? That's how they humble you. They try to get next to you, be your friend. There's that song, that old school song that I grew up on. My parents used to play it all the time. They call "Smiley Faces." Okay, that's definitely a song that describes these type of individuals. Okay, it says, "Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be as in him as thou have wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away." All right, and that's basically he's a rusty, filthy individual. Okay, right. And then it says, verse 12, "Set him not by thee, lest he had overthrown thee. He stand up in thy place, neither let him sit at thy right hand." Basically, going back into the very first verse, never trust thy enemy. "Lest he seek to take thy seat, thou at the last remember my word and be pricked therewith. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beast?" Who will pity a charmer? Okay, and you know who the charmer is? They, dances with snakes and so on and so forth. So when people see a charmer get bit, they're not going to pity him because they expect that, all right? And that's the same thing with individuals. When you trust in this system, you trust in this government, okay? Same thing. So nobody's going to pity you once you trust in them and then you get bit. All right, verse 14, and it says, "So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sin, who will pity?" And he said, "For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry." Okay, as soon as he find an opportunity, he's not going to tarry. He's gonna pounce. Okay, and he said, "An enemy speaks sweetly with his lip, but in his heart he imagined how to throw thee into a pit." Okay, and that goes back to that clip when that Jake was basically explaining, like, whoever is funding it must really love, hate America. Okay, and which is, we don't. This is not our rest anyway. We love the fact that the downfall of America is happening because we know our kingdom is coming next. But it just shows you the character of the people that's behind all of these chaos, okay? And it says, reading that again from the top, and the enemy speaks sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagines how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. Okay, you got the brick. They setting pallets of brick, setting pallets of Molotov cocktails. All right, all of these things. You know, even in certain videos, there's certain videos where they put pilots in in neighboring cities where the game bangers live. Okay, they do stuff like that. All right. In verse 17, it says, if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. Okay, and that's what the whole point of this lesson. Ordo E Chao. They create the chaos, and then they're gonna come and swoop in and come with that order. All right, because they the one who created chaos, and now they have a plan to establish that order. These are the people that we're talking about. And it said, though he pretend to help thee, yet he shall undermine thee. All right, so you know that's pretty much the point right there. You know, just a quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh. So, Lord willing, this is edifying. With that, we give all praise and honor to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Kakadas. I want to give double honor to the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who rule well and teaching us the truth. All right, Shalom, Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, Shalom.